Hello, in this lesson, I want you to evaluate absolute value expressions, and I want you to solve absolute value equations. First off, let's define what do we mean by absolute value. Absolute value, you might remember from middle school, we probably were told it's positive. Well, that's not quite true. That's a sort of truth, about a half truth. The absolute value of A means the distance from zero. That's all it means. So when you see absolute value, we're talking about the distance from zero. Now, mathematically, the definition looks like this. We're going to say the absolute value of A equals, and we're going to split it up into two parts. One is A if A is greater than zero. So the absolute value of 5 is 5. The absolute value of 7 is 7. And it's the opposite of A, not negative A, but the opposite of A if A is less than 0. So the absolute value of negative 5 is 5. The absolute value of negative 7 is 7. So in middle school, they told you the answer is always positive, and that's true. But the definition is distance from 0. Now, if we take a look at example 2 here, let's evaluate an absolute value expression. We have the absolute value of A minus 7 plus 15 if A equals 5. So the first thing we're going to do, replace A with 5. So we're going to say 5 minus 7. And you treat the absolute value kind of like a parenthesis. So inside the absolute value, we find that answer first. 5 minus 7 is negative 2. The absolute value of negative 2 is 2. Because negative 2 is less than 0. The opposite of negative 2 is 2. So 2 plus 15 is 17. And there's your answer. Now let's define the absolute value of x minus a. Well, since distance, absolute value has distance, it's the distance between x and a. So if you're subtracting two numbers, like the distance between 3 and 5, to find that, I'd say 5 minus 3, take the absolute value of it. Now, when you solve an absolute value equation, we're going to do a couple steps here. First thing you do is you have to get the absolute value symbol by itself. After you get the absolute value symbol by itself, if it's greater than or equal to 0, you solve that. And the case 2 is what's inside would be negative. So you always have two answers with absolute value unless it equals 0.